Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hope this finds you healthy and safe. We're going to continue today with the Vimalakirti. That's this week's Sutra. We'll see how far we get. And then Sunday, we'll do a Gangyo, and I'll start on a different one. Oh, interesting. So, chapter 2, oddly enough, like the Lotus Sutra, in the Vimalakirti, it is expedient means. So let's see what the Vimalakirti has to say about expedient means. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. At that time, in the great city of Vaishali, there was a rich man named Vimalakirti. Already, in the past, he had offered alms to immeasurable numbers of Buddhas, had deeply planted the roots of goodness, and had grasped the truth of birthlessness. All right. You know by now I'm going to correct all of this, right? And by correct, what I mean is we're dealing with ancient languages here that are being translated multiple times through different cultures and languages, and we're ending up with, is this Burton Watson? Who did this one? Yeah. An Englishman, a man of a culture of the Church of England, a Christian. So he can't help himself. He's a scholar. He's very good at translating, but when those words that seem to conceptualize things that he's not sure how to understand, naturally, he goes to what he knows. And they're not the right terms. They include all kinds of biases and ideas that don't belong in Buddhism. And so I will keep correcting for that. So, Vimalakirti, in the past, has often offered alms to immeasurable numbers of Buddhas. Now, were there immeasurable numbers of Buddhas? So far, on this planet, there is only one. Shakyamuni attained enlightenment and remained here as a man, coursing in Buddhahood. This is exceedingly rare. The closest you and I can get to that sensation of being here is as bodhisattvas. So technically, you could say that even Shakyamuni, who was given the moniker of Buddha as the realized one, was a bodhisattva, fully awakened to the Buddha way, remaining in samsara to lead all others, all beings, to Buddhahood. That's the definition of a bodhisattva. Now, there's lots of discussion throughout the teachings of the different levels one can attain of bodhisattva, let alone enlightenment, right? For a long time, early sects believed, and still some to this day, that to be knowledgeable enough about the way the mind works in samsara, that we can separate ourselves from the influence of samsara, we've attained it. We're there. That would be an arhat, or an arhant, or a hinayana highest level. But as we've discovered through the Vimalakirti, through perfection of wisdom, and we will read more on that. The Vimalakirti very specifically calls out arahants and says, no, you have not reached what you think you have reached. You have reached a very high stage. Good on you. But now, if you really want to experience complete enlightenment, perfect enlightenment, Buddha, you must course in the Bodhisattva way. And the Bodhisattva way has varying degrees of accomplishment. So, when this says he's given alms to immeasurable numbers of Buddhas, they're talking about his intent. Remember, I always say Buddhism is about the mind, it's about attitude and intent. So, if by helping you, my intention isn't to help Bob, John, Alice, Muhammad, whatever your name is, that's not who I'm helping. I am, as dedicatedly as I can, trying to awaken your Buddha. Bob's Buddha, Joan's Buddha, Muhammad's Buddha, right? Michaela's Buddha. That's who I'm helping here. That's who I'm talking to. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Now, that may help you in your daily life, in samsara. And I'm very happy to do that. But that will occur as a result of awakening your Buddhahood, not the other way around. So you can become a scholar of Buddhism and never attain Buddhahood, or for that matter, course in the Bodhisattva way. Many have done so. Many of the books that we read are translations by scholars who are by no means Buddhist. Some scholars resist the idea of an enlightenment using the teachings of Buddha at all. And yet, they're good translators. But they fall into bias traps, right? Their cultural realities, the things they can't let go of. They're human. Maybe eventually, with enough scholarship, they'll start to see things that enlightens them, but they are generally ichantika, men and women who are scholars because they so love to learn and to experience new things through their learning. World of learning and realization, right? Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas. It's very hard. In fact, it's not until the Lotus Sutra teaching that even Shakyamuni allows for them to be able to accomplish Buddhahood. But they have a tough time of it. Nobody's more enamored nor glued, attached to the mental feats they can accomplish. They get so high from that to go beyond that is silliness to them. They're stuck. This is your arhat. They're stuck. I know this so well. I understand it before it happens to me. Congratulations. That's amazing. But why does that matter if you don't help anyone else? If nobody sees it in you? If nobody can communicate with you? It's like you've stolen the special sauce and you've made off with it. Well, I got news for you. I don't care how special that sauce is, but if you're the only one who has it, it's not so special. From the very start, before Shakyamuni was Shakyamuni, his goal was always that if there's such a thing as a truth, a fundamental truth to all phenomena, all life, because if it's true for life as we know it, you and I, then it has to be true for dogs, cats, mountains, birds, air, planets, universe. It has to be true all the way down. And with that kind of truth, everyone can attain this truth because it's truth in everything, every phenomena. Should be easy. Because if it's that kind of truth, it's always been there. We're just not experiencing it. What is keeping us from experiencing it, from knowing it, from being in it? That's all of Buddhism. Right? So this is a rich man. Interesting, we set him up as a rich man. Obviously, wealth, attachment, it's got to be. He offered a lot of alms. He was generous to help other people attain whatever they understood to be enlightenment at that time. And deeply planted roots of goodness and had grasped the truth of birthlessness. He may have been an arhat. At very least, a man of great learning and realization, a pratyeka Buddha, somebody who not only learns the teachings, Shravaka, and can hear them correctly, but somebody who realizes the implications, the world of realization, still hasn't gotten to Bodhisattva, although he's doing a lot of great things, roots of goodness. He's generous, he's kind. Really good features in a personality, a character, right? Unhindered in his eloquence, he spoke well. Able to disport himself with transcendental powers, he commanded full retention of the teachings and had attained the state of fearlessness. So yeah, he was an arhat. He had overcome the torments and ill will of the devil and entered deeply into the doctrine of the law, proficient in the paramita of wisdom, the perfection of wisdom, and a master in the employing of expedient means, knowing how to speak to people who aren't at that level yet and be able to lead them to insights, right? Expedient means. He had successfully fulfilled his great vow and could clearly discern how the minds of others were tending, could see easily the karmic impediment of other people. Moreover, he could distinguish whether their capacities were keen or obtuse. Does this person really know what this means, or are they just mimetically repeating it, but they don't really get it, right? Able to understand people at a very profound level. His mind was cleansed and purified through long practice of the Buddha way. All right, so he may perhaps be a bodhisattva. Firm in its grasp of the great vehicle, and all his actions were well thought out and planned, he maintained the dignity and authority of a Buddha, and his mind was vast as the sea. All the Buddhas sighed with admiration, and he commanded the respect of the disciples of Indra, Brahma, and the four heavenly kings. Well, I should think so. So, heaps of praise on this individual. Why then is the first thing that distinguishes him other than his name, Vimalakirti, is that he's a rich man? Odd to put that first, don't you think? Let's move on. Desiring to save others, he employed the excellent expedient of residing in Vaishalai. His immeasurable riches he used to relieve the poor. His faultless observation of the precepts serves as a reproach to those who would violate prohibitions. Through his restraint and forbearance, he warned others against rage, anger, and his great assiduousness discouraged all thought of sloth and indolence. Concentrating his single mind in quiet meditation, he suppressed disordered thoughts. Through firm and unwavering wisdom, he overcame all that was not wise. So this paragraph describes Vimalakirti's practice of the 6 paramitas. This is coursing in the Bodhisattva way. Okay. Though dressed in the white robes of a layman, he observed all the rules of pure conduct laid down for monks, and though he lived at home, he felt no attachment to the threefold world. One could see he had a wife and children, yet he was at all times chaste in action. Obviously, he had kin and household attendants, yet he always delighted in withdrawing from them. Not sure. So he didn't like to be fawned upon. Although he wore jewels and finery, his real adornment was the auspicious marks. Although he ate and drank like others, what he truly savored was the joy of meditation. All right, these are kind of confusing dualities, but let it be said that a bodhisattva lives amongst the people. That doesn't mean that because others drink, and we'd have to find out what that means, if drank meant imbibed alcohol, or if it just means, water, tea, those kind of things. Even those are prohibitions in early Buddhism, right? So that's kind of confusing, the description so far. And again, it could just be Burton Watson. Burton or Burton? Burton. If he visited the gambling parlors, it was solely to bring enlightenment to those there. If he listened to the doctrines of other religions, he did not allow them to impinge on the true faith, the true teaching, the true resolve, the true Dharma. Why the word faith? Burton, come on. Though well versed in secular writings, his constant delight was the Buddhist law. And a Buddhist law says you don't enter other churches, you don't enter other places of worship, and you don't go to gambling parlors, and you don't go to bars. I don't care if you go there with good intent. You are immersing yourself in intoxication, even if you don't drink, even if you don't listen to their teachings. It is penetrating your samsaric reality, and you can't allow defilements of any sort. If you're chasing your wisdom, your ideal samsaric self, your Buddha, then everything you do has to be mindful of that goal. Right? I grew up around the martial arts, and for a time I was fascinated with MMA. But the brutality and violence of MMA has nothing to do with martial arts. It really doesn't. And for that reason, I've abstained from it. I don't watch it. I'm not even interested in it anymore. Because it supports rage, the world of hell, the world of anger, manipulation, and deception. It's not about physical skill. It's not about attaining a higher self through physical, arduous practice. It's about pummeling other human beings. How could that support my mission of Buddhahood? So, I don't know, Burton. What are you telling me? What are you translating? Because you're translating and you're shifting ideas as you translate. Are these true to the words of whoever he's transcribing? And if they are, there's some confusion in this. So let's read on and see where we go here. Respected by everyone, he was looked on as foremost among those deserving of alms. Deserving of alms? What were the words earlier? Unfathomable wealth? All right. Embracing and upholding the correct Dharma, I have doubts, he gave guidance to old and young. In a spirit of trust and harmony, he conducted all kinds of business enterprises, but though he reaped worldly profits, he took no delight in these. Okay. He frequented the busy crossroads in order to bring benefit to others, entered the government offices and courts of law so as to aid and rescue all those he could. He visited the places of debate in order to guide others to the great vehicle Now that's the only honorable thing I've really seen here. Visited the schools and study halls to further the instruction of the pupils. Okay. He entered houses of the ill-famed to teach the folly of fleshly desire. So he went to whorehouses and taught them that what they were doing was abusive to their potential. Sounds a bit Christian to me. That's not our mission as bodhisattvas, right? We advise people on the way to Buddhahood. We don't tell them that they're being bad people. That's their choice. We teach them how to become better people regardless of what they do. We don't judge them that way, right? You can spend all day long, every day, 365 days a year, speaking in every manner from soft to screaming to an alcoholic, and you're not going to stop that person drinking. That's not what changes them. What changes them is how they experience themselves. That takes great compassion. Entered wine shops, here we go again, in order to encourage those with a will to quit them. Well, it's a wonderful thing to do, but not the entering the wine shop to do it. It sounds a lot like, what do we call them? The religious zealots in this country, the evangelists, right? If he was among rich men, they honored him as foremost among them, because he preached the superior law for them. If he was among lay believers, they honored him as foremost because he freed them from greed and attachment. Okay? Among kshatriyas, he was most highly honored because he taught them forbearance. Among Brahmins, he was most highly honored because he rid them of their self-conceit. No small task for Brahmins. The great ministers honored him as foremost because he taught the correct law. The princes honored him as foremost because he showed them how to be loyal and filial. Within the women's quarters, he was most honored because he converted and brought refinement to the women of the harem. I will leave judgment there alone. Harem, just, I don't know. It was thought of differently in those days. Not so much as a brothel, but specifically in service to one Lord, right? I don't know. I'm still confused. The common people honored him as first among them because he helped them to gain wealth and power. Boy, this guy. The Brahma deities honored him as first among them because he revealed the superiority of wisdom. The Indras honored him as first among them because he demonstrated the truth of impermanence. There's lots of contradictions here. The four heavenly kings, guardians of the world, honored him as foremost because he guarded all living beings. In this way, the rich man, once again, Vimalakirti, employed immeasurable numbers of expedient means in order to bring benefit to others. All right, so he knows the teachings. He's very well read. He's kind to people. He helps everyone he can. He's living in samsara. He's living amongst the people. I'd say, so far, apart from some confusing rhetoric, sounds like a very accomplished Buddhist. Using these expedient means, he made it appear that his body had fallen prey to illness. Because of his illness, the king of the country, the great ministers, rich men, lay believers, and Brahmins, as well as the princes and lesser officials, numbering countless thousands, all went to see him and inquire about his illness. Vimalakirti then used his bodily illness to expound the law to them in broad terms. Good people, this body is impermanent, without durability, without strength, without firmness, a thing that decays in a moment, not to be relied on. It suffers, it is tormented, a meeting place of manifold ills. This is sounding awfully Christian, Burton. Good people, no person of enlightened wisdom could depend on a thing like this body. This body is like a cluster of foam, nothing you can grasp or handle. This body is like a bubble that cannot continue for long. This body is like a flame born of longing and desire. This body is like the plantain that has no firmness in its trunk. This body is like a phantom, the product of error and confusion. This body is like a dream, compounded of false and empty visions. This body is like a shadow appearing through karma causes. This body is like an echo tied to causes and conditions. This body is like a drifting cloud, changing and vanishing in an instant. This body is like lightning, barely lasting from moment to moment. Yeah, he knows the teachings. You've heard me say this sort of thing many times, right? We just got through with a video podcast on samsara. Many of the same words echo through this dialogue. Knowledgeable dude. I'm not sure why he's deceiving everyone unless he sees himself as a Buddha. We'll reserve judgment on that, how his ego's interplaying here. This body is like earth that has no subjective being. This body is like fire, devoid of ego. This body is like wind that has no set lifespan. This body is like water, devoid of individuality. So he's really confronting attachments here, right? This body has no reality but makes these four elements its lodging. This body is void, removed from self and self's possessions. This body is without understanding, like plants or trees, tiles or pebbles. This body is without positive action, blown about by the wind. This body is impure, crammed with defilement and evil. Evil. Attachments. Mara. Evil. This body is empty and unreal. Though for a time you may bathe and cleanse, clothe and feed it, in the end it must crumble and fade. This body is plague-ridden, beset by 101 ills and anxieties. There we go. This body is like the abandoned well on the hillside, old age pressing in on it. This body has no fixity, but is destined for certain death. This body is like a poisonous snake, vengeful bandits, or empty villages, a mere coming together of components, realms, and sense fields. Sense fields, the skandhas, right? The consciousnesses. Realms, the 3,000 realms in a single thought moment. Components, right? The factors. So early Mahayana, we're talking about these things. Not until much later do we define them like Tyendai did as the 3,000 realms, or as Vasubandhu talked about the skandhas very deeply, right? Good people, a thing like this is irksome and hateful, and therefore you should seek the Buddha body. Why? Because the Buddha body is the Dharma body. It is born from immeasurable merits and wisdom. It is born from precepts, meditation, wisdom, emancipation, and the insight of emancipation. It is born from pity, compassion, joy, and indifference. We've already talked about indifference. The modern definition of indifference is kind of a judgment looking down at something as lesser. And I'm not saying it's not that, but indifference in this sense is that it simply doesn't affect you, which is also a clear definition of indifference, but it's not one we use day to day. It is born of the various paramitas, such as almsgiving, keeping of the precepts, forbearance and gentleness, assiduousness in religious practice, in Buddhist practice, of course he would say religious, meditation, emancipation, and samadhi, wide knowledge and wisdom. It is born of expedient means, born of the 6 transcendental powers, born of the 3 understandings, born of the 37 elements of the way, born of concentration and insight, born of the 10 powers, the 4 kinds of fearlessness, and the 18 unshared properties. It is born of the cutting off of all things not good, and the gathering in of all things born of the truth, born of the avoidance of indulgence and laxity. The body of the thus come one is born of immeasurable numbers of pure and spotless things such as these. Good people, if you wish to gain the Buddha body and do away with the ills that afflict all living beings, then you must set your minds on attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. In this manner, the rich man Vimalakirti used the occasion to preach the law to those who came to inquire about his illness. As a result, numberless thousands of persons were all moved to set their minds on the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. So, a lot of question marks in that. In general, we could say Vimalakirti was a great bodhisattva, certainly to the people he knew and touched their lives. And the next chapter, chapter 3, is the disciples. So we'll see how this develops. We can already see the kernels of what we know about Mahayana. We can also see where he stumbles in his understanding of Mahayana, talking about the Buddha body as though it were something that is gained in physicality, made of stuff. We know from our study of Mahayana, the idea that Buddha is made of stuff is a Samsaric thing to say. It's a very beholden, attached thing to say. Buddha is a state of mind. It's not the body of Buddha is a mental perception of being. It's not this. Because it is unattached. It has no qualities. It is the absence of qualities. It is the absence of Dharma. It is the absence of all things we are attached to in samsara. And we can carry that mind within our samsaric body. And that may offer us protections, clarity, health, all sorts of physical benefits to protect that mind. But the Buddha is not made of anything. But we're in the Vimalakirti, very early teachings. These are teachings where the arhats are becoming the ones that want to, becoming bodhisattvas, starting to learn what it is to course in the Buddha way as a bodhisattva in samsara. And then we're dealing with Burton Watson, who is a Christian by any sense, and applying his ideas of what is Buddhism, trying to, in his mind, force it into the square hole of religion, and therefore he can use words like faith and all these magical terms that just don't belong in Buddhism. But we're getting the general message here. And so I'm curious to see how we move forward with Vimalakirti's description here, and the next chapter being disciples, how they interpret what they're being taught. That should be interesting. Not that it's useless, but understand where this teaching sits in the canon, right? All right. Well, it didn't take that much time. I said all that pretty quick. Anyway, it's nice to have a shorter podcast every now and again. I no less thank you for being here, listening. Questions, observations, use the comments section. Let me know what you're thinking, what sounds like what it isn't, and blah, 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 blah. Words. Fun time. I hope that you stay healthy and kind to yourself, kind to others. This is a very determined practice. It doesn't work well as an occasional diversion. It's something we have to stick with. And so I congratulate you on your efforts. And I always welcome your thoughts. Those of you who support me in various ways, you guys are priceless. I mean, we all benefit from your generosity. Thank you so much. On Patreon, on Patreon/TLK, or independently on PayPal me. You see it all on the videos. I don't need to tell you. So thank you for that, and I will see you for Chapter 3. Take care.